you just confirm Richie Myler's sort of prognosis and absence, please?
Well, he's already done it on Instagram, hasn't he? I believe. Yeah. He's had it repaired. He's had his adductor repaired. Initial estimates, what they told us is around 10 weeks, James. Which could have been worse. The specialists that's looked at it talk about it's just the way in which he's landed and the mechanism in which he's gone potentially can do damage to your ACL. So he actually feels like he's been, looking at the incident, been quite lucky to escape further damage, really, just on the way. And as I say, the mechanism in which he's gone down. He torn his adductor. That's been repaired. And we're looking at around 10 weeks, mate. He had his surgery on Monday.
How does that present to you in terms of selection issues over that time then?
We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. It's crystal ball stuff, James, I reckon that. At the moment, Jack's in there. He knows he needs to improve on last week's performance. Some of our injuries, obviously some suspensions in there, but the short term, the pitches, touch wood when I say this, obviously we've got a game to get through tomorrow night, but the pitch is going to change pretty quickly for us in terms of numbers and selections over the next week or two. Obviously, Rhys Martin's going to be on his way back. Fussy Tua just a bit early. He's just, unfortunately, after training this week, just not quite fully recovered from that perfect tackle that he suffered against Warrington. And Newman, again, just a week away. We wanted a little bit more training load into Newman. We've had it scanned again, and he's fully healed and repaired. But being a 4-week injury like it's been, we just needed to get some more miles in his legs before we make him available for this one. So, that we're looking towards next week. Touch wood, all being well. We felt Fussy were going to be back this week, but, just unfortunately, it's a bigger picture one for us, James. We just don't want to rush him back if he's just not quite right and set him back. So we're going to, take some precaution and safety first on him this week. So
is he still getting sort of concussion symptoms, for want of a better phrase?
Oh, just some after effects from that tackle. I'm not going to be too specific with it, but he's just not quite right to play at the moment.
So how big a boost is it to have Brad Dwyer back for this week?
Yeah, good. I thought last week, one thing we talked about post-game, we lacked some line speed and his defence, we felt were really passive. Some real indicators when guys are carrying the ball right across your defensive line, which I didn't think would have featured the week before. I felt, from our Warrington game, James, where our line speed and our pressure that we exerted undernumbered were fantastic. But I felt we had a pretty passive defensive line, and the ruck speed were too quick on us last week. So there's one thing that Brad gives us. He gives us sharpness. He gives us high energy, line speed, good inside pressure, tons of enthusiasm, and he's a tough little thing. And he's got the ability to spark us in any situation. So we're looking forward to getting Brad back.
You mentioned last week about how the game had changed once the starting props had gone off.
Yeah.
Has this week's rotation been a real sort of thinking point for you?
Yeah, it has. And we've had a good strong look at it, and hopefully we've picked a rotation and a bench that will give us more impact and energy than it gave us last week. As I said, James, it's a tough one because we were on the back of a performance. We were thinking, even though we didn't get the result, there were a lot of, we thought, terrific signs in the way that we defended, as I say, undernumbered, high energy, got off us line, forcing people back in tackles, really dominant in that area. And disappointingly, it were the polar opposite last week. So, we know we need to hold some blokes accountable for that. And, we're looking for a much improved display in that department this week.
Talk about Catalan in a moment. I noticed John Wilkin was pretty critical of Aidan last week. What's your assessment been of Aidan's contributions over the first two games?
Well, I didn't listen to John Wilkins' comments for starters, so I've no idea. John's paid for his opinions, and he generally got pretty good opinions, John. But I think there's room for improvement across the board. James said last week, I thought we had some pretty ordinary individual performances, stretching right across the board. I thought we were too deep, didn't get enough push and support. Played before the line as timing were off. So across the board, mate, I think to hold one guy up. But I haven't heard his comments, so it's difficult for me to respond. And to be honest, I'm not really in the business of responding to what television pundits say, even though I've got one on my own staff now who's sat in this room. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that. We know where we let ourselves down, and I think importantly we know how to fix it up too. So I'd say we're looking for a much improved display this week, not just from Aidan, but from our spine in general and from our whole team, mate.
What do you think you'll get from Catalan?
Look, I think they're a real methodical team. I think they do what they do and do it really well. I think the spine plays with a lot of control, and the shift plays always with Sam Tompkins on the back end of them are very dangerous. I think Drinkwater is a really smart player, as in when to run, when to kick, when to pass. Clearly they're missing some middles, and they've got some inexperience in and around where they would usually have some big powerful experienced guys. But as I say, I think methodical. They know the jobs. Round one, even though they got beat by Saints, I thought there was still some all right signs for them in that game. I weren't looking at Catalan thinking I'd be too worried. And last week I thought, while the score ended up close, I never thought they were truly threatened for the game. I thought they were pretty much in control without ever really extending themselves too much. Both teams are on a shortish turnaround. So yeah, I'm expecting a tough contest from two teams who know they've probably got some improvement in them. Has
Willie P, the good mate Willie P, been able to tip you up at all? Because they did push them close last week, didn't they, with a young, very energetic side?
I've not spoke to Willie, mate. We're more concerned about getting our own performance right, as what Wakefield, what tactics Wakefield went into the game. When we're more interested in making sure that we get a performance more akin to what we saw in round one in terms of effort and energy, rather than the one that we saw in round two. Back on Aidan, I thought Aidan playing with 12 men in round one were actually magnificent for us. So again, we're back to the discrepancy in our own performance right across the board, James. I thought we were lacking in, we were definitely lacking in energy and intent at times last week.
Just lastly from me, what would it do for the group to get that win, that first win this week? I know it's only the third.
Yeah, everybody wants to get off the mark. And again, after coming close in round one and probably feeling like we should have got something out of the game, it was a flat performance and a flat feeling for us last week. And again, on a short turnaround, not much time to fix too much up on the training field, but making sure that the one thing we can fix up is our effort, our effort areas and our attitude getting into the contest, mate. I think number one, that's the first protocol for us.
Just in terms of your spine, you lost Myler in round one. You played without Austin in for a game. You played without Dwyer for a game. Might it take some time for this spine to sort of come together? Does it need a little bit of leeway in that regard? I mean, can you expect it to click in the first 2-3 weeks of the season?
Yeah, good question. I think we haven't had continuity in selection yet in spine or pretty much elsewhere in the team. I think within that, Aaron, the pundits will also recognise we lost Richie as a standoff really early in the first game. Obviously, we lost Brad coming into last week and had limited preparation time. So we've not been able to have any real stability in there. I will say this though, mate. I think the key to it is probably what you're doing defensively and in the middle of the field and the platform you lay there. I think that was the disappointing thing. I thought we laid a good platform in round one, which, we're talking about Aidan playing in a 12-man team and coming away with the man of the match, to not really laying a strong enough platform against Wigan. I think when our two starting front rows came off last week, I thought, there were a real dip in our performance, and We certainly didn't rectify that at half-time. So as always, mate, I think if you get your effort areas high and you get the intensity right, you can sort of wear some of them little creases, Aaron. Do you know what I mean? I think even if it's not quite where it will probably be in round 10 or even round 15 or 20, I still think at this point of the year, if you get on the back of a good kick chase and your effort areas are good, it's a lot easier for your spine to perform. Having said that, we're not going to hide away from the fact too that there was some really poor errors come out of those guys. I think, Jack came away with a number of handling errors that led to tries. We didn't turn the ball over in a particularly spectacular fashion, which I think you absolutely need to do again a team like Wigan. And we know, from watching film and review this week, there's a number of guys that are holding around up saying, we got to do better, and we know that.
Do you expect Rhys Martin to be available for Wakefield next week? You say he's on his way back, but obviously he's been out of the country for a couple of weeks. Obviously, been dealing with some personal stuff. Will he be available?
Yeah, well, he should have plenty of time to prepare for that game, mate. He's due back this weekend, so we'll see how he pulls up again. He's been training while he's away. He's had a lot going on. He's had a lot of travel. There'd be an emotional impact on him. But we'll wait and see how he gets back before we make any judgments on picking a team for Wakefield. Hopefully, we've got a selection headache because our two back rows have played extremely well this week. That'd be a lovely position to be in.
Just finally on Catalans, they've obviously got a number of middles out. Is it a stretch to say that they're vulnerable there? Or, obviously weaker, but is that somewhere you can maybe get at them through the middle?
Look, I think any team, if you take 4 or 5 good players out of any team in the compound, it's probably going to have an effect on the lineup. I will say this: I still think they've got some good experienced players in there. They've got a good spine in terms of the back line, particularly if Davis plays. The 1 to 7 in that regard, and the starting back rows in there. So we're not looking at them thinking this is going to make them particularly vulnerable. I think any team that loses, the likes of Julian and Napa and Gildudson, it's going to have an impact. It would have an impact on us, as we've seen. So we'll see, mate. But it's an opportunity for their young guys to stand up and get some experience. So again, we're more focusing on us, Aaron. We think that after a performance like we put in there last week, we've certainly got some areas and some levels of accountability that we know individually and collectively we hugely underperformed last week. So we've made it more about us, mate, rather than focusing too much on Catalan. I think whatever Catalan team we see, it will be disciplined, methodical, and well prepared.
Just on Jack, he's obviously come back from a long injury. What about the sort of performance he was looking for? How important is it that he puts in a response for himself rather than anyone else, so his confidence or what have you doesn't get questioned as such?
Yeah, I think you broke up a little bit there, Matt. But look, his first game back in 2 years again, Warrington, where again he had limited prep because of the Blake Austin situation. It was very much a late change for us. I thought I performed really well in that game. Backing it up off a short turnaround. Look, he didn't have his best game last week, but there were still parts of his game that I thought he performed really well. I thought his tracking and his positional play at the back of the line were really good. We needed him to get on more plays in good ball when we had the ball. Obviously, he had a couple of errors that would have been highlighted because of what came off the back of him. But players have bad games, mate. We're in round 2. And we're talking about a kid that hasn't played a lot of football for 2 years. We're talking about probably some doubts that he had coming into this season in and around his foot. And I think what we saw from him in one of the trial games and subsequently round 1 should leave us more positive about where we can get with him. Everybody during the careers will have an off day or more than one off day, and I think it's our job to get him through that, make sure his confidence is high, but importantly make sure that he's comfortable and knows his roles and he can fix some of that stuff up this week.
And just on just on last week, obviously not the performance you want, but if you could get back to sort of near those Warrington levels, can you then box that Wigan game off as just a bad day at the office and move on and not have to sort of concern yourself with what happened too much in that game?
Oh, I think you'd always concern yourself, Matt, because you don't want too big a gap between your good and your bad, and that's that's the bit where I'm coming from with the boys this week. We didn't win against Warrington. I think we probably felt we should have deserved something out of the game. It was hard to fault our effort levels. I thought the quality of us play for big chunks of that game were outstanding. We got undone by a couple of big moments in the game, and maybe a couple of things within that didn't go against us. Obviously, losing a standoff, losing a winger, and some other sort of incidents that's been talked about. But we had a poor flat performance, and we want to be a consistent team, and we want to be up there challenging and playing our best every week. So understanding why that performance came about, and I guess I've said this before, holding people accountable for their own individual performances, and in terms of could our preparation been any better? We felt we prepared all right for the game. We felt we started the game all right too. But yeah, we were usually disappointed in the way we fell off. So, brushing it under the carpet, 80 minutes is a long time in rugby league. If we get a good 80-minute performance out there this week and we get where we need to get to, I think, we can look back, not look back. We can sort of look forward and move on. But that's what's in front of us this week, Matt. I feel that we're in a position we've got to show a response to the way we performed last week. I don't want to downplay Wigan too, mate. I thought Wigan played well. I thought what I've seen of Wigan this year in round one, a tough place to go, OKR, and I thought the performance against Warrington in the trials. I don't want to sound like it's all about us. I thought Wigan, Wigan did a good job on us last week, but at the same time, I've said it a number of times in this interview, we were disappointed, mate, across the board with individuals and our whole team performance. The good and the bad, there needs to be far less a difference for us.
Just on the interchange, you mentioned that your starting middle sort of laid a good platform for you that wasn't built upon. Is the sort of gauntlet laid down now for whoever's on the bench to muster up a better response and back up the platform that you like to Zane and Matt Pryor do lay down?
Well, look, it's a collective for us. When we went down in round one, I'm not looking at the guys that were sent off and sin-binned and individually pointing for it. It's a collective. We win together and we lose together. And I did feel that we didn't get a great response from our bench middles last week. At the same time, as I said when we were talking around Jack, there were plenty of guys off the mark last week in a lot of areas, not just defensively, but again, how we turned the ball over, individual handling errors, a lack of pushing support, playing too deep. There were a lot of things in our game that were off the mark, mate. So, look, I think they're a group that they're smart enough to look and to see the pictures and to understand how to fix it up. And I'd say, hopefully, we've got a really good chance to do that tomorrow night. Again, a strong team.
Just a quick thing. Catalans have made a very big signing this year in Mitchell Pearce.
Yeah.
And of course, before he arrived, everybody was saying, he's going to win the Man of Steel or be a contender and all that sort of stuff. But his first two games, I didn't see the whole game against Wakefield, so I may be doing him a disservice. But I did see the Saints game, and he's not quite yet performed at the level that probably he's capable of. I would think. I just wonder, when you get a big name like that opposing you, and you've got Austin and Caesar, who let's assume are going to play at halfback for you tomorrow night. Do you find that your Australian players, when they're up against one of their own fellow countrymen who's coming with a big reputation, are highly motivated to play well? Will that give them a bit of an extra 1% that might just make that difference?
I would hope so, but I'd like to think we were highly motivated to play most weeks, Martin. Look, on back to that, I get the pre-season talk, and this guy's going to be in for Man of Steel, but we're in round two. We're in round two, and I think Mitchell Pearce will prove like James Maloney did last year. There's plenty of, you guys have got to fill your column inches and fill your websites, and everybody has their opinion through social media channels, and people are very quick to judge on a trial game or rounds 1 and rounds 2. I'd be judging him after 27 rounds, guys. I think for a halfback, and I'll include our guys in this a little bit, for halfbacks to come into a new team and think that they are going to hit the straps and hit the ground running from round 1 after a 12-week pre-season and a couple of trial games, really, Martin, that's unrealistic, isn't it? It'd be nice to think that might happen, but the reality is, for Mitchell Pearce, he's coming into a new team in a new country in a different style of competition. They played the champions in a red hot performance from them in round 1, where Saints stifled them and didn't give them much opportunity to play. So we're judging it. I think we're very, very quick to judge and draw assumptions and conclusions. That the reality is, I think over the course of time, Aidan Season and Mitchell Pearce will prove to be really good signings for the club.
Hopefully, in Mitchell's case, from round 4, I suppose. But just a final thing: have you got any players going out on loan this week to anywhere else?
No, we've not. Obviously, it's Challenge Cup for most of the Championship clubs. So if we send anybody out this week,
you can't afford to get them cup tied.
And given we've still got a significant number of players out of our team, we're not currently dual regging or loaning anyone, Martin, because in the short term, on the short turnarounds that we've got in the first 3 weeks of the season, we've got a number of players that aren't available for us at this moment in time. So safety first for us, mate, and we don't want to go cup tying anyone at this stage just yet either.